Some of the shards must have flown to his face, for the doctor covered his eyes and fell to his knees. Madame Mornington saw her son's brief incapacitation as her chance to flee the basement. But the doctor was soon on his feet again, and he raced after her, shouting for her to stop. I heard quick, sharp footsteps heading down the tunnel towards the quarantine gate, towards me. It was pitch black, but a light was nearing, and I saw Madame Mornington. She undid the bolt and threw open the gate. I stood before her in utter astonishment. She was breathing hard and could not speak. She clutched at her stomach, her face twisted in agony. Her skin was flushed, and her lips were flecked with foam and blood. Groaning, she lurched forward. The sight was awful. I backed away from her. This was the same woman who had robbed me of my one chance at freedom on that wet London night, what seemed a lifetime ago. She had fulfilled the request of a murderer, and charged me with madness for wanting to escape such a life. And she had locked me inside a house of horrors to die by torture instead. She may not have held the knife, but she was part of this just the same. What could she want with me now? Her body contorted in violent convulsions, but she managed to locate the ward key from within the folds of her heavy gray skirt. She broke the chain that attached the key to her waist and held it out to me. Stunned, I could not move to take it. I stared into the woman's face and saw that the eyes that I still believed had once been beautiful were wild with anguish and desperation. Holding the key that had taunted me for so long, her trembling hand still reached out to me, as though begging me to take it from her, to relieve her of her burden at last. Finally, I managed to move my feet. I stepped towards my headmistress and cautiously accepted the key. She stumbled to the ground, and with her dying breath came the hoarse whisper, "Run away." Her body writhed upon the dirt floor, and with one final convulsion and a harsh scrape sounding from deep within her throat, I knew that Madame Mornington was dead. But the ward key, it was in my hand. It was actually in my hand. I took up the dead woman's lantern and raised the key to the flame. "Liberty," it called to me. Then, noise from somewhere in the building roused me into action. I knew that Dr. Stockhill was hunting for his mother. It was only a matter of time before he would find her, and I must be gone when he did. Past the open gate, I flew as fast as I could through the tunnel, emerging from the hearth, my stockinged feet sliding into the entrance hall. One of our hideous, gray ghosts flew in front of my face, cavernous eyes wide, the gaping black hole of its mouth forming the word, "Run!" as a piercing shriek from all corners of the asylum echoed the same, rising in volume as I raced onward. Grasping the ward key ever tighter in my hand, I bolted up the several flights of rickety stairs, only just avoiding my own demise as the rotting wood snapped beneath me and railings gave way, crashing to the ground below. I heard the grinding of the gears, the rattle of unseen machinery, and I knew that Dr. Stockhill was securing the asylum. Still screaming for his mother, the doctor ran through the endless rooms, the sound of breaking glass and toppling furniture following him as he went. Surviving the staircase, I reached the barred landing of the lunatic wards. I fit the key into the lock and turned it. That old familiar click, and I was in. Once through the bars, I unlocked the doors of both wards, and from a nail in the wall outside of each took up the 2 rings of smaller keys used by the chasers to lock us in our individual cells and fetters. I began with Ward B, for I knew that it would take more time to free the chained-in cage than it would to loose the girls in the less confining ward. With the ward key between my teeth, I unlocked cell W14 and tossed one of the rings to the captain, giving her instructions to free every last inmate and to be quick about it. I repeated the procedure in Ward A, and within seconds, a flood of girls and the rats who had been guarding them came pouring out of the wards and onto the landing. I flew to the gate, an army of little girls and the entire league of plague rats behind me when, in the midst of this chaotic muddle of stockings, claws, and tails, I stumbled and fell flat on my stomach. I watched helplessly as the key launched itself from my hand, shooting away like a bullet across the filthy floor towards the open gate and out of my reach. Time stopped. I was back in the gilded foyer of Bainbridge, and Anne was sliding the master key across the marble floor. But then, it had been coming closer, and now it was moving further away. And then, a black-shod foot came down, stopping the key and concealing it from my view. I raised my head to see Dr. Stockhill towering above me, a seething fury in his red-rimmed eyes. Without a word, the doctor snatched up the key and turned back towards the gate. Instantly, I was on my feet, and before I knew what I was doing, I lunged at the doctor, leaping onto his back and sinking my teeth into his arm in an attempt to get back the key I was determined not to lose. The mass of inmates and rodents rushed forward to my aid, but my emaciated limbs were no match for my opponent. He had pocketed the ward key and now shook me off, holding me close in front of him, my back pressed against his chest, and his hand clenched around my throat just as he had done to Christelle.